Day of Remembrance, which commemorates the 1942 signing of Executive Order 9066 by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, which authorized the forced removal and incarceration of over 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. We want to give a special thank you to the sponsors of this event, the Topaz Museum, the Takahashi Foundation, the Anthropological Studies Center at Sonoma State University, and the Correct Foundation. And with that, I'll turn it over to our presenter for today, Dana Shew. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. And thank you all so much for being here. Like Christina said, thank you for choosing to spend a beautiful Sunday here with us. So my name is Dana Shew. I am oral historian and interpretive specialist and sometimes archaeologist at the Anthropological Studies Center at Sonoma State University. And I've been lucky enough to, in that role, be able to work on a lot of projects that deal with Japanese American history and specifically incarceration. And this project is especially important and special to me because I'm also a Topaz descendant. And so this exhibit that you see here today is a culmination of almost 8 years of work. I kind of couldn't believe it when I looked back at the beginning of it, but it started back in 2018. And it includes multiple projects and multiple perspectives, and ultimately what I feel are multiple layers of meaning and understanding. And the basis and foundation of this work are the art pieces that you see out there in the exhibit. And these were created between 1943 and 1945 by toddlers who were between the ages of 3 and 5, who attended preschool while incarcerated at Utah's World War II Japanese American incarceration camp known as Topaz. So to fully explain sort of how we're at this exhibit today with all of these layers, I do have to go back essentially 8 years to the summer of 2018. I was having a digitization event at JSA in Emeryville, and the purpose of that event was for people to bring in their items from camp, and it could have been any camp, and it could be a multitude of items. So any objects or photographs or other mementos that could be digitized, so we could scan them and photograph them to help preserve them and save them and possibly even share them. Well, at that event, Joan Fuji, she's not here, is she? No, okay. Joan Fuji came in and she had with her 3 hand-bound books of children's art from the Topaz preschool. And so Joan and her sisters had found these books after their mother passed, and they had been put together by a head teacher at the Topaz preschool as a thank you and farewell gift to their mother, Tomiko Takahashi Sasaki, because she had actually eventually become the director of that Topaz preschool. And so these books of art were this thank you for her time and her service there. And so not only were we excited to, digitize these and save these, but once we realized that each of these drawings had the name of the child artist and in many cases their birth date, we knew that this was much more than just a digitization project, right? So we started this journey, we launched a search that's still ongoing to find these toddlers. And so that's basically the Topaz Toddler Project was born. In addition to the artwork that was amongst Tomiko's things, there was also a photo album as well as some of her personal writing about her time as the preschool director. So in the exhibit there is a small section about that, and actually on our online exhibit there's a more in-depth look at Tomiko's time as the director that was created by Tomiko's daughter Ruth. So I do encourage you to visit that website and also see that section in the exhibit to learn more about the preschool and about the teachers. So I won't go into much detail here except to say that unlike the elementary school and the high school at Topaz, the preschool was primarily taught by Japanese American women. And it was them that organized mostly on their own, and they started this when they were at Tanforan. And this was the temporary detention center that they were at before being moved to Topaz. They were already thinking about the well-being and the need for care of Topaz's youngest incarcerees back then. And so they really did dedicate a lot of commitment and time and thought and care into protecting this population. Oh, and I do see Tomiko is right here in the middle. And so that's Tomiko and all of her teachers. The project really kicked off in December of 2018 after several months of research and reaching out and connecting. We were able to get 11 of our toddlers over at JSA in Emeryville, where for the first time they were reunited with their artwork after over 75 years. And so they got to see it in person. They got to meet each other, essentially see classmates, right, that they hadn't seen and didn't even know that they had. And so it was a great time. And actually, Norm, who you will meet later, was the 11th toddler. I didn't even know he was one of them because I only knew him by his American name, Norman, but his drawing has his Japanese name on there, Makoto. And so he came to the event just as a attendee and then said, "Hey, that's me." I said, "Oh my God, we got 11 toddlers. Come on up, Norm." So that was great, and that really helped sort of kick off this project. And so over the next year, the search continued, interviews continued, and there was a lot of momentum, and we were reaching out, and people were being found, and connections were being made, and even plans for another in-person exhibit were being made. And then COVID hit. Yeah, but that didn't stop us. So what we did throughout COVID was we continued. Oh, happy Chinese New Year. Don't be scared, those are just firecrackers. So we continued. We were a part of Tadaima, which was the online pilgrimage in 2020. I continued doing interviews, they just happened over Zoom. And then instead of an in-person exhibit, we switched to an online exhibit. And that is still up today. That showcases how many toddlers we've been in touch with and the stories that we've collected so far. And to date, we have been in touch with 36 toddlers or their family members and have conducted over 20 interviews. Thank you. And the search continues. Like I said, the books contained the names of 69 toddlers. We know there were many more toddlers that were in preschool, but those are the ones that we have the artwork of, and so we're over halfway, right? And we're still looking. And so any help that you can give to us, we've got flyers that have everyone's names on them who we're still searching for. So reach out to your connections, see who you can find, see if anything is, or anyone's name is familiar, and please get in touch because these stories keep coming. And everyone is, unique and special and important to capture. So, like I said, these interviews and the reconnections with the now grown toddlers, they provide that first layer of understanding that is core to our project, which is reflected on our online exhibit, right? Which really highlights children's art and all that visually invokes: innocence, freedom, growth, right? Freedom to learn and express themselves against the backdrop of unjust incarceration. And all of that invokes, right? Racism, a loss of freedom, the need for resilience. And so we pair all of that with the voices and reflections of these grown toddlers. And so that adds a layer of depth and a deeper appreciation for the parents and the teachers who really, they were the ones that sacrificed and they endured. And they dedicated intentional effort to make sure that these toddlers really had a sense of normalcy. Over a year and a half ago, the idea again surfaced for having an in-person exhibit. And this was because of Sonoma State undergraduate Samara Stout, who is here today. Thank you, Samara. And her major in anthropology and her minor in art history drew her to the Topaz Toddler Art Project. So we began an internship together in which we're going to shape and plan this exhibit. And it's during that internship that Samara really did help define and build the foundations of the exhibit with the interpretive theme and structure and really understanding the messages that we wanted to share with people. Well, then the following semester, we were lucky enough to expand the internship and we added 2 more students from Sonoma State as well as students from Cal Poly Pomona. And so as we worked all together, to develop these stories and to develop the themes and to really understand what kind of messages this exhibit was going to share, I was increasingly struck and impacted by what the students were saying, what their reflections and their connections were. I mean, they were finding stories of the toddlers, and they were finding art that was really resonating with them. And then in turn, that was resonating with me. And I think one of the biggest things was that I was seeing them make relevant connections to today. As a descendant and a member of the Japanese American community, the parallels between incarceration and World War II and the things that are happening today are blatant, are pretty obvious. So it was heartening and inspiring to me to see that young people today, outside of that community, feel the same way. And so I felt it was really important to include their voices in this exhibit because they act as bridges from the past to the present and across generations and beyond ethnic and racial communities. And they really help center us in today. And so they really are, I thank them for meeting my challenge when I said, you guys are gonna be part of this exhibit. Like, I think this is important, and I challenge you to write statements that say, I feel this way, and I think this. And they did it. And you could see that out there in the exhibit, and so I thank them for their courage and their bravery to do that. So the final layer, I guess you could say, right, has to do with, or involves with taking a look at the basis and the foundation for this exhibit, and that's the children's art. These drawings, right, are immediately recognizable to all of us as children's art. And from the beginning, I was always fascinated by the art itself, wondering, what's this child thinking? What does this mean? What can we infer from this? And so that's when our next presenter comes into play, Dr. Ayumi Nagase, who is Associate Professor of Early Childhood Studies at Sonoma State University, who brings in another layer to this project with analysis and research into finding and interpreting meaning in children's drawings through an academic, research-driven and based perspective that's rooted in early childhood development and studies. And so, I'd like to welcome Dr. Ayumi Nagase.
Introduction, and also thank you very much for Janelle. And where are you, Janelle?
Janelle and Dorian.
Okay, then Samara. Hi. Then Dorian. Marissa, Juan, and Cassandra. Thank you very much for your wonderful, wonderful work. And I hope you all are going to enjoy this fruit of their labor. Over the years. So it's, yes.
Can you use the mic?
Microphone. Sorry. Yes, and then I never use a microphone in my class, so I'm not used to that. So thank you very much for everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
And thank you again to OACC for having us. It's really, really, it means a lot for us. And also thank you very much for Mr. Akinobu Kuramoto and Ms. Joyce Takefuji, Inoue, and Mr. Makoto Non Hayashi. Thank you very much for joining us today. Then before I am going to talk about what I want to share with you, so here are a couple of highlights. So I am going to share what I learned from this project, mainly focusing on why do we draw, or why do children draw? And I do have a sample to make this talk a little bit more interactive between you and me. And I would like to conclude this presentation with a few thoughts that I had, as Dana said, as a parallel between what we have seen here through this exhibition and what we have been seeing in a more macro structural level. So those are the three things that I want to focus on. Then as I am moving on to this first topic, why do children draw? I believe you all have a piece of paper. I am going to give you 1 minute, then please quickly draw one thing that you are thinking of on top of your head.
I drew because I was working at home right before this event happened,
I got a wonderful Christmas gift of cyanotype fabric, and I'm going to a sewing retreat in a couple of weeks. I decided to use that cyanotype fabric for little labels or patches for my sewing sisters. So I drew tiny scissors and also the sun shining on it, because that's how you produce the images.
Beautiful, thank you so much.
Okay, I drew a crane, a tsuru, which in Japanese stands for long life, and I think all of us here like that, and it reminds me of the book that was written, Sadako's, Thousand Cranes.
Thank you so much for the beauty. When we talk about drawing actually is a multifaceted, very complicated act. When we ponder why children actually draw, just like you did, we draw for pleasure, for having fun. We draw to communicate through symbols like scissors, sunshine, and crane. And also we draw to share experience. So I do have family members who live far away from me. Then every time we do like Oshogatsu, Japanese New Year, Christmas, very important family celebration events, I draw something to say, I miss you. Then my family members would respond to me, I miss you too. I wish you were here. So that kind of sharing experience can be delivered through drawing. And drawing to explore ideas, brainstorm things, like have immature ideas, more like solidify a little bit. And we children also draw as a play too. But also according to literature, children also draw to cope with big emotion, such as trauma, loss, and separation and sadness. Then there's a rich collection of drawing analysis research on children who were sent to Terezin Ghetto, which is a way station that Germans sent children with Jewish heritage on their way to Auschwitz. So the literature made roughly a couple of distinctive categories based on the drawings, artifacts that young children created at the Terezin. One group is drawings that children attempted to depict reality, especially among teenagers or older children, describing ghetto life and severe living conditions, not much to food, very cold weather stuff. And another chunk of drawing is children of various ages who made fantasy-oriented drawings. So it kind of makes you wonder, where did you get that fantasy? Completely unrelated to their chaotic, brutal life. And I do have this example here from this beautiful book called I Never Saw Another Butterfly. Collection of children's drawings and poems was created at Terezin concentration camp in 1942 and 1944.
I've lived in the ghetto here more than a year, in Terezin, in the blackened town now. And when I remember my old home so dear, I can love it more than I did somehow. Ah, home, home, why did they tear me away? Here the weak die easy as a feather, and when they die forever. I'd like to go back home again. It makes me think of sweet spring flowers, before when I used to live at home. It never seemed so dear and fair. I remember now those golden days, but maybe I'll be going there soon again. People walk along the street, you see at once on each you meet, that there's a ghetto here, a place of evil and of fear. There's little to eat and much to want, where bit by bit it's horror to live, but no one must give up. The world turns and times change, yet here we all hope The time will come when we'll go home again. Now I know how dear it is and how often I remember it.
Thank you very much, Samara. Lots of facts are missing about this poem, but researchers seem to think that this poem was written by older, like teenager. Then we were able to see somewhere that this was written in March 3rd, 1943. And older children with lots of vocabularies and communication skills could choose these kinds of verbal outlets, poems and words, to express their deep sorrows and how much they miss their home, how much they don't want to be here, right? But younger children, since they are still growing, learning vocabulary, ways to communicate their emotions, or ways to put their emotions, complex emotions into words, sometimes they use a non-verbal channel like this. Then this is a title, House, created by this girl, Valentikova Dita. Then she was born in 1933. Then when she created this beautiful paper collage with a girl in the house, she was about 10, 11 years old, May or June 1944. Like most of the children who spent years at Terezin at that moment, Valentikova is also believed to pass away, die, lose her life at Auschwitz later in that year. So it's very close to that last moment of her life. So we see ample cases in which children seek to cope with their actual reality by drawing alternative reality that they hope to hold on to. So in other words, children sometimes draw their pre-relocation past the everyday reality, or their home, loved ones, friends, flowers, natures that were no longer for them. So that's another chunk that literature is finding. Then I was going to say one more thing. Then examining children's drawing allows us to see these developmental milestones, then artistic processes, and layered meanings hidden within their work, just like we saw in a house and drawings created by volunteers and also all of you. And I like to use like making a quilt as an analogy for drawing analysis. So making a quilt, you are working on tiny piece to make a huge blanket, huge quilt, right? So then drawing analysis is just micro analysis, like a tiny slice of snapshot of what this child is thinking and feeling. Then while no single drawing can explain a child's experience fully, something like the artwork in this exhibit that you see over there offer a very important lens for us to understand how young children actually made a sense of their world, their experience during the very difficult time at the incarceration camp. Then you can read my whole analysis on the hallway as a part of my panel. But I thought this choice of green color is very interesting because now I am going to ask you, survivors, did you see lots of green grassy area at the Topaz camp?
I just saw desert.
Desert, right. Desert, sand, itchy sand dust. That's things that I am hearing, seeing a lot, multiple times when I was reading everyone's interviews. Why green? That's a really interesting choice of color. Then as someone who is learning drawing analysis, of course, color selection means a lot. Oftentimes blue means isolation, loneliness, solidarity. Then green means harmony. But once again, just by having one drawing, it's really, really impossible for us to have accurate analysis of what Diane was actually thinking. And then also, drawing analysis literature suggests us that using one color is also indication of this child going through a lot. So using all sorts of psychological, mental resources to cope with that difficult situation that they are going through. So we can make out that interpretation. But as you experienced quickly here in this exercise, we do really have to be cautious about attributing far-reaching meanings just based on one drawing. So drawing analysis literature really, really emphasizes that cross-checking is critical, essential. Cross-checking meaning that more like triangulation, right? Using multiple points of data sets. So in this context, multiple drawings, so sample multiple drawings, that would give us really nice analysis, reflection on what kind of patterns we see here. Usage of line, usage of color, and also fine motor skills, and so forth. And also, this is something that this project is very, very meaningful, open-ended conversation with the young artist. If possible, do you remember? What do you remember about this drawing? What do you remember about the steam train that you saw at Topaz? So that's additional, really significant, remarkable thing that this project is trying to complement. And also, if possible, multiple rounds of behavior analysis when that young children is actually drawing, or maybe after they finish drawing, that behavior sample, that also gives us really critical information to make our interpretation much more precise and also much more richer. So then after all, drawing analysis, it's just a tiny, tiny fragmented piece of snapshot about this one person. Then what I did for this project, of course, as a humble researcher with this deep recognition of these cautions, limitations, shortcomings, I tried my best to seek ways to mesh what I know as a child development expert, which is my field, and also interview oral history, which came from anthropology, which is not my field at all, then drawing analysis, which is very, very new to me when 2025 started. I want to conclude my session by really pointing out that parallel between what Japanese American children went through at incarceration camps during the war, and what many children are going through at detention centers right now. In terms of, well, I just received my green card a couple of days ago at home, so I am going to use somewhat explicit language about corrosive, derogative, racist, shameful nature. We do see parallel between those things in those nature. So this is what we have been seeing, hearing. This came out in February 9th, a couple of weeks ago. I have been here too long. Read letters from the children detained at ICE's daily facility. Hundreds of children are currently being held with their parents at immigration detention center in Dilley, Texas, and beyond, elsewhere. In letters and drawings, 8 children convey the pain of feeling trapped with no end inside. This is really, really significant. And in the press conference, they also show this drawing created by a child at the detention center. What do you see here?
I see a fence.
And looks like we do have human being, but their mouth goes like this. So then, children were at once and also are now separated from their families, communities that they belong. And we are damaging children every time, every moment, every second that when they are being held in the detention centers. And also, we needed to think about children in places like Gaza, in Ukraine, and other places. Not again is what we said, but apparently we are seeing the similar case being reported. So now is the time for each of us to be part of this building collective solidarity and resistance for children and say, no, stop repeating this. Then I think creating time and space, just like what our team is hoping to accomplish with this profound, rich project, like space to talk about incarceration, which is a huge stain on this country's history. And trauma caused by this horrendous policy is very, very critical. Having conversation is one of very powerful acts that we shall do now to cement what happened during the war and to stand in solidarity. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. Then thank you very much for listening.
And now I'd actually like to bring up some of our toddlers. Yes, I know. We've got 3 of our toddlers here. So you guys mind, you want to come up to the front? Yeah. So we have with us today Norm Hayashi, Akinobu Kuramoto, and Joyce Inoue. I'm going to have each of them just briefly introduce themselves. So go ahead, Norm.
What did you want?
Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, like where you're from and your family when you went to Topaz?
I'm Norm Hayashi. Is that clear? I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, and we were born and raised in Oakland and Hayward. I'm a Hayward grad. What else? Not much.
So who went to Topaz with you?
I was 3 years old when we went to Topaz. The sad part of it is my dad and my uncle, they were able to work outside of the camp after a certain amount of time. So that affected my relationship with my dad. He came home to visit one time and I ran behind my mom's skirt or whatever. I was afraid of him. And later, I actually worked with my dad. He was in the wholesale flower business plants, and I worked with him and took over the management. But there was one thing in between that. I don't know what it is. I never could get close to him, even though we're right there together. We didn't talk about serious stuff. I guess that's one effect of the camp itself.
Thank you.
I'd first like to thank Dana for putting the toddler project, make it a reality, and having all of us here. I'm Aki Kuramoto. I went to, I don't remember this, but I went to Tanforan at the age of 2 with my parents and one sibling. Actually had an uncle, but he was hospitalized at the time, and so he passed away while we were in Tanforan. And so we went on to Topaz.
Yeah. And your family was a nursery.
Yeah, my folks had a nursery in San Lorenzo before the war, and he was fortunate to have a situation where he was able to retain ownership, and so we were able to come back to the nursery, which many families didn't have that fortune. So,
Thank you.
My name is Joyce Takefuji Inoue, and we went to Topaz when I was 3. I don't recognize my picture. I'd like to have your opinion of what it shows. And I don't remember very much because I was so young, but in our family, we didn't talk about the war at all. Different from Aki's family, where they had many discussions, and it wasn't until probably college that we even broached the subject again, and I found out so much. And my father also worked at a farm during camp. He would take a bus, I think on Sunday, and then come back on Friday, and he would bring back food, like eggs and things that they didn't have at camp. Camp food, I guess, was not very good. I was too young to know the difference. But I don't really remember very much. But one interesting story. My father he came out of this, I think, very strong. And he had a good experience at the farm, working at the Walker's farm. But after the war, he worked for the mayor of Berkeley. And one day he came over and he was very excited. He had this guest coming, and it was Earl Warren. And so he wanted to introduce them. And he came over to my father and said, "Hello, I'm very glad to meet you." And he held out his hand. And my father said, "I couldn't shake his hand. I just had to say, 'Nice to meet you.'" And then he apologized afterwards for being rude. But that was my father, very strong example for us.
Thank you, Joyce. So I'm going to show each of their art pieces. Yeah. And then do you have a brief analysis of some of their art pieces, right? Yeah? Yeah, okay. So we're gonna do this from a, academic side. And then I have, and none of them remember this, but I have their reactions and their interpretations from when I interviewed them years ago. In addition to using abstract shapes to represent something, this is a stage that young children are really able to grab their pen like this. Have you seen babies who are drawing in your life? Then they often grab crayon like this, right? So then this is the indication that babies are still developing their fine motor skills. They are not able to hold a pen like this using 2 fingers and 3 fingers. So this is the time, developmental stage, that young children are starting to attempt holding pen by using fingers because of their fine motor skill development. Then what I saw here is like lines that go to every direction here. Then as you see closely, we do see different types of red. One looks like magenta, one maybe looks like more like pink, and that's a really interesting nuanced color difference. And also we do see tiny shapes here. And Joyce, do you remember anything? I'm gonna play your initial reaction, which is one of my favorites.
I don't recognize it.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Future Picasso, huh? Oh gosh. Isn't that funny? I wonder what that was supposed to be. Something on the ground. A rock on the ground. Those are the pebbles I fell on, I guess. That is great. Just because of the simplicity and my age.
That was one of my favorites. Well, and Joyce, I don't know if you remember this, but you had said in there that you thought, oh, maybe these are the rocks I fell on. And do you remember the story about falling at Topaz? Did you have that?
Yeah, I do. There were two teenage boys who lived in the next barrack, and they were little boys like to tease little girls, not maliciously, but I think I was running and I fell on the gravel and cut my eyelid. And so that's what I remember about little rocks and falling.
All the toddlers were obviously very young, and many of them are always saying they don't remember much. But it is always interesting throughout these interviews that the snippets that they do remember are very strong, and a lot of them are able to sort of connect those specific memories to some of these drawings and to some of these things. Okay, so Aki, here's yours.
Since this is a little bit harder to see, we can see 3 years and 10 months. Then this one is also, let's see, 3 years and 11 months old, so a month apart between two drawings. And since this is really hard to see, so I am going to focus on this one. This was really one of the difficult analysis that I have ever done for this project, because I actually asked my husband, hey, what do you think? And like, this is ambulance and fire engine. By looking at this red color, vibrant red color, yeah, it might make sense for us to assume that this might be fire engine, but also looks like ambulance too. So, as you can see a little bit closer, you can see this tiny dot. That could be siren, then door here, and window, and two wheels over here too. Yeah. Very advanced, right? Right. So that's done. Then 3 years and 10 months, 11 months old. That's also another stage that young children start drawing things in a more precise, more accurate fashion because of the very sophisticated eye-hand coordination and once again fine motor skills and also ability to plan things accordingly.
So Aki's reaction was actually more about the other drawing. I know it's hard to see, but...
Well, like I was showing you this drawing, this stick figure, I'm amazed how my granddaughter is very similar to this drawing here.
I know that we can't see it from here, but it also says that middle one is a necklace, and then the side one is a fish. Does that mean anything to you?
No, but at that age, I'm amazed that you even would know what a fish is at that time. Or I wouldn't think we would see very many fish. The Seawood River goes pretty far away.
Right.
And I don't think people have been fishing there, but they might have.
So Aki, do you remember your granddaughter's drawing that you were comparing that one to?
Yeah. Yeah, my granddaughter was pretty young. She was actually, I think, 2 or something, and she drew some stick figures. But she had amazing pencil control. So I'll show it to you later.
Do you have any thoughts on the car drawing at all, or any memories with like?
I don't have any memories of trucks or anything like that. But apparently, from what I understand, there were delivery vans and things like that that was going through the streets delivering to each of the camps.
Right, yeah. We do see, and they're not all up there, they're all on the online exhibit, but there are quite a few drawings of cars, trucks, and even planes, and you'll see one of the planes out there. Well, I kind of just wanted to sort of touch on something and ask you guys to share a little bit. One of the other big themes, I think, I said that comes through in all of these interviews with these toddlers who, were very young and had few strong but few memories, is when they reflect on their time at Topaz later on in life, the thing that kept coming through was their gratitude towards their parents. The parents and the adults in your lives that helped create this sense of normalcy and helped create, you know, a safe space. They were so young, they didn't know any better, but as adults, they look back and they have, you know, strong feelings about what their parents went through. So I was wondering if you guys could sort of speak on how you feel about what your parents sacrificed.
Did you say parents?
Yeah, I know you spent a lot of time with your mom.
Oh, our camp, there wasn't too many male guys. I guess they went to work. And then my mom got the manager. Nobody else wanted the job. So I had to tag along her duties during the day, and all I met was women. Sorry. And I realized my early years, I couldn't even make male friends because they weren't around.
Yeah, and that did really affect your sort of worldview at that time. Yeah, yeah. How about you, Aki?
Most of the experience that, you know, I talked to from people that were incarcerated, their families never said anything about their experiences. But my experiences, my father was always extremely vocal, saying that he was wrong, and think, you know, he's unusual in that way. But his circumstances are also unusual because almost all families had a household that was a issei. And both my parents, my grandfathers on both sides actually died when they were infants or small, very young. And so my grandmothers from both sides were in Japan at the time, so they were essentially alone.
Yeah. How about you, Joyce? I know you have strong feelings about the strong women in your life.
Right. My grandmother was also in camp, but she stayed with my uncle's family because he was sent to Crystal City because he was schooled in Japan during his early years. So, but my grandmother was just a little woman warrior. When the war started, I guess everyone was fingerprinted, but she was such a hard worker. She didn't have any fingerprints. She was scrubbing floors and doing working for other families. And my mother was also very strong. She had polio when she was 4 years old and wore a brace until she was 15. She came out to be the most normal person, not shy and holding back. So strong women, but my father was also very strong. I'm just very, very lucky.
Thank you. Thank you all. Yeah. I'm wondering if we could open up to, if we should open up to questions from the audience, if anybody has questions for our toddlers. Oh, yep. Do you have any memories of when you first came out of camp, when your world was expanded?
Yeah, that was a strange experience because at pre-dawn we loaded onto buses, and then so we go through the desert and I see all this stuff beyond the fences, and eventually we're loaded on the trains, and by then the shades weren't pulled for us. And coming back to California, like I said, my father was fortunate, so we had a place to go.
My grandmother was incarcerated in Topaz at the age of, I think, 20 to 22, and she had a very difficult time. And she began speaking about her time in camp during the first administration, and she had shared with me difficult stories. And I asked her one time how she felt about when there are stories about, you know, the dances and the sports, and when it's reflected in a much different light. And she said, that's because we as parents did our job. And so I think things like this is really a testament to the perseverance of both the toddlers and the parents. So thank you for showing the perseverance of the parents as well in this exhibit.
I have a brother who's about your age, and he was 3 when they went to Heart Mountain and 5 when they left, and he said he doesn't remember anything about the camp. But I wanted to ask the 3 of you about when you might have realized that you were actually imprisoned and how you felt about that when you realized, maybe how old you were and how you felt about that.
I never understood about the fence stuff. In fact, I was told by my parents, stay away from that guard tower where that guy, a soldier, actually killed somebody. And the stairway was only 3 feet, from the fence. But we would walk up there just out of curiosity more than anything.
Actually, I don't think I really realized it until we came back to Berkeley and we were in school. And at recess time, you would line up with your class and go out and come back in a line. And I must have been in the 3rd or 4th grade. And when we got to the stairs, one boy looked at me and screamed, "You're a Jap." And I was really a really timid, quiet person. And I screamed out, "No, I'm not." And I got in trouble. And I never told my parents. I think I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't want to get in trouble, and I didn't tell the teachers why I was yelling. But it still sticks in my mind.
Yeah, because I guess in camp you were surrounded by other Japanese people, so you wouldn't have experienced that there. Yeah.
Hi, thank you again so much for doing this amazing panel. I have 2 questions. One is, have you been back to Topaz, whether it was with your family or with a pilgrimage or some other purpose? And then the second question is, have you recorded your story? Have you ever done a life history interview or written it down or done something that captures these stories and memories?
She's actively recruiting right now. Have you been back to Topaz?
Twice. And the first time we took a bus out there, they wouldn't let us off the bus just to look at the foundations or anything. It was simply too hot. And the other time, my wife and I, we drove through, not Topaz, the town itself, but it was dark, So, 30, 40 years ago. Sorry.
You don't have to apologize. It's okay. Have you been back?
I've been back twice, able to get out and walk through the camp areas. I was able to locate our own barracks. It's kind of interesting, and it's amazing because the whole area is all trenched. There were streets that crisscrossed between the camps, but there were these huge trenches that I guess to keep vehicles or something. So the whole area is just destroyed.
Have you been back, Joyce?
No, to my regret, I haven't. I think life just interfered, and I wish I had gone back.
Or maybe it's not too late. This is a good plug for the Topaz pilgrimage that is actually happening this May. There's more information at this table. So we should do a Topaz toddler reunion at Topaz this year. Patty's second question was about whether or not you've had your oral history, your life story recorded. No. Every project that I do kind of revolves around Norm. So he's had sort of his story recorded in bits and pieces, but I think that'll be a next goal, is to get your life story.
Can I say anything if I was only 3 years old?
Funny to say, all of these memories. Have you had your story?
I have, the only thing I've done is in the last month I wrote some emails to my siblings and my children about some of the things that I recall. So that's the only thing I've actually written down.
I started a big notebook page of things I remember on the years. Like my mother said I broke my wrist, and I went, I had my tonsils out, but it never progressed very far. I couldn't remember much after that. So, yeah.
That's our next project.
Oh, yeah.
A quick question would be for the two of you that have gone back. Did you find that to be part of the healing of you being able to talk more openly to others about, or because you don't remember it as much? I mean, I think coming from a perspective of not knowing what that would feel, that the draw to want to go back, but understanding that there's a healing in that and keeping it alive so people don't forget, which obviously we're having trouble with at this current time. But did you find healing in it when you were there, or was it just inquiry?
I couldn't feel anything much because there wasn't much standing. Even the foundation, they really couldn't tell what was what. The only thing that bothered me, I guess, it was the heat out there, living in the heat.
Which is what you lived in when you were young. Yeah.
Okay.
And what you're saying about healing, I didn't really experience that because I've always been very vocal, just like my father. I didn't, it wasn't something that I was hiding.
There are, I think, things I remember about being there were the things that my parents told me later, like when they first built the place, there was a laundry room, a bathroom, but when you went in, you had to go to the bathroom, there were toilets lined up, no partitions, just toilets lined up, and I guess in the shower too. And so the ingenious men, I think my father among them, they built stalls to afford some privacy for that. And I remember walking to the dining hall in the cold. And in the barracks, there was one room, no partitions, one room, a big potbelly stove in the middle. And I guess when they built it so quickly that the wood was green. So when it dried up, you could feel that they commend them.
Thank you, Joyce, and thank you all. I mean, and that's, I think, everything that they've all been sharing today, they all said to me in the beginning, oh, I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything. But as we can tell, they do, and there is more in there. And then once they start thinking about these stories and start talking about the past, it unearths and it comes out. And so I thank you for being here as part of these conversations that help these stories stay alive. So I think we are going to wrap it up now. And so I did want to sort of go through my list of acknowledgements here. Obviously, thank you to the panel. I want to thank all of our sponsors, the Correct Foundation, the Takahashi Foundation, the Anthropological Studies Center at Sonoma State, the Topaz Museum, and of course, the Oakland Asian Cultural Center. Stephanie, Christina, and Indra, who is retired but made this really possible. And thank you to all of the students who made this exhibit. Samara Stout, Janelle Pleshak, Dorian Rivera, Juan Ramos, Marissa Martinez, and Christiana Corazon. Thank you for not just developing the exhibit, but for helping to bridge the past and present, highlighting the relevance to our current times, allowing the toddler stories to resonate with their own lives, and having the courage to include those personal impacts as part of the exhibit. Thank you. And thank you to Ruth, Joan, and Susan, the daughters of Tomiko Sasaki, who found and shared the books of art with us, making this project possible. Tomiko's legacy lives on in the many connections and stories and insights that have been unearthed through this project, and the important work that she and other teachers dedicated themselves to at Topaz. I would also like to thank Renee Siegel for being here in honor of her mother, Diane Hoshi Shimada, who we've sadly lost this December. Thank you for being here and letting us share your family's story. Really appreciate it. And of course, a continued thank you to all of the toddlers who have shared their memories and perspectives and who continue to entrust us with their stories, allowing us to share them and dissect them and even analyze them, and most importantly, to learn from them. So thank you all for being here. I think the first step in making sure that history does not repeat itself is learning that history, no matter how difficult.